Development experience of India, a comparison with neighbors, China and Pakistan. This is the last chapter of Indian economic development. Common success of structural reforms in India and Pakistan. The common success of structural reforms in India and Pakistan are both India and Pakistan have succeeded in more than doubling their per capita incomes in spite of high growth rate of population. So both India and Pakistan increased their per capita income, that is more than double, but at the same time there was high growth rate of population in both the countries. The incidence of poverty has also been reduced significantly. However, the level of poverty is lower in Pakistan. So India has greater level of poverty compared to Pakistan. Both the countries have achieved self-sufficiency in the production of food. So after the Green Revolution, in both the countries, they have achieved self-sufficiency in the production of food. Both the countries have succeeded in developing their service and industry sector at a faster rate. So there is rapid development of service sector, tertiary sector, as well as the secondary sector, that is industrial sector, in both the countries. The use of modern technology is improving in both countries. So both the countries started to use the modern technology from labor intensive to capital intensive. What are the common failures of India and Pakistan of structural reforms? The common failures of structural reforms in India and Pakistan are growth rate of GDP and its sectorial constituents have fallen in 1990s. So till before 1990s, there was upswing of GDP, the growth rate of GDP for both the countries. But after 1990s, there is decrease in the growth rate of GDP. Poverty and unemployment are still areas of major concerns in both the countries. So there is vast prevalence of poverty and unemployment problem in both the countries. Areas where Pakistan has an edge over India. Starting from almost the same level as India, Pakistan has achieved better results with regards to what are these? Number one, migration of workforce from agriculture to industrial sector. More people from agricultural sectors, they have migrated to industrial sectors in Pakistan. Migration of people from rural to urban areas. Even the people who are migrated from rural areas to urban areas are more in Pakistan. Access to improved water sources. So safe drinking water, provision for safe drinking water is more in Pakistan compared to India. Reduction in below poverty line population. More number of people are above the poverty line in Pakistan. Areas where India has an edge over Pakistan. There is little doubt that in the area of skilled manpower and research and development institutions, India is better placed than Pakistan. Indian scientists excel in the areas of defense technology, space research, electronics, and aviation, genetics, telecommunications, etc. So in these sectors, India has an edge over Pakistan. The number of PhDs produced by India in science and engineering every year, that is about 5,000, is higher than the entire stock of PhDs in Pakistan. Another sector is what? Issues of health facilities in general and infant mortality rate in particular are better addressed in India. So health facilities and Because of the better health facilities, the infant mortality rate is low in India. Success of strategies in China. There were decentralized planning and existence of a small enterprises. There was an extension of basic health services in many rural areas, which we do not see in India and Pakistan. Though the commune system, there was a more equitable distribution of food grains. There was an existence of infrastructure in the areas of education, health, and land reforms. So these are the strategies that the China adopted, and which these strategies led China to develop. Failures of strategies in China. There was the slow paced growth and lack of modernization. China believed on their own, and that is why the growth rate was slow. The Maoist vision of economic development on decentralization, self-sufficiency, and signing of foreign technology was a fail. Despite extensive land reforms, collectivization, the Great Leap Forward, and other initiatives, the per capita gain output in 1978 was the same as it was in the mid 1950s. So there is, if we compare these two after near about 30 years, then there was no development. If we compare these 2 years, why does China have an edge over India? The Chinese reform process began more strongly and comprehensively during the 1980s. At this time, India was in midstream of a rather slow growth process. By then, the rural poverty in China was declining by 85%. During the period from 1978 to 1989, 1978 is the reform period. In India, at this time, it was declining by only 50%. Moreover, the global exposure to the Chinese economy has been far wider than the Indian economy. Also, China's export-driven manufacturing has been the reason for exponential growth. And India continues to be only a marginal player in the international markets. Comparative study of China, Pakistan, and India with respect to demographic indicators, GDP and HDI. Demographic indicators, we shall compare some demographic indicators of India, China, and Pakistan. The population of Pakistan is very small and accounts for roughly about 1/10 of China or India. Though China is the largest nation and geographically occupies the largest area among the three nations, its density is the lowest. Population highest, but there are vast area, that's why density is the lowest. One child norm was introduced in China in late 1970s to check the problem of population growth. This measure led to decline in the sex ratio. Although sex ratio is biased against females in all three countries. In recent times, all three countries are trying to adopt various measures to improve the situation. After a few decades, there will be more elderly people in proportion to young people due to one child norm. So that problem exists in China. And India is the youngest country right now. The fertility rate is low in China and very high in Pakistan. Urbanization is high in both Pakistan and China. So these are the demographic indicators. Comparative development of India and its neighbors, that is Pakistan and China. India and its neighbors, Pakistan and China, have very similar development strategies as an economy as a whole. A few such similarities in their development strategies are as follows. All three countries, India, Pakistan, and China, began towards their economic development at the same time. In addition, India and Pakistan attained independence in the year 1947. However, China was an independent economy in the year 1949. India and Pakistan began with similar strategies for creating larger public sector units and soon began working on raising public expenditure on social development. Both of them are following the mixed economy, that is the coexistence of public and private sector. All the three countries began planning their development strategies in a very similar fashion. India made an announcement of its first 5-year plan in the year 1951. However, Pakistan made its 5-year developmental plan announced in the year 1956. China, on the other hand, had made this announcement in the year 1953. Up until the 1980s, all three countries had very similar growth rates and per capita incomes. Economic reforms took place in all the three countries, India, China, and Pakistan. In India, 1991, China, 1978, and Pakistan, 1986. Comparative analysis of development of India and its neighbors. The overall development of three economies are broadly classified into demographic indicators, gross domestic products, and sectors, and human development indicators. We shall now comparatively analyze the development of India, Pakistan, and China. The population of Pakistan is very small and accounts for roughly about 1/10 of China or India. Though China is the largest nation and geographically occupies the largest area among the three nations, its density is the lowest. Already we have explained. One-child norm was introduced in China in the late 1970s to check the problem of population growth. This measure led to a decline in the sex ratio. In China, for 1 lakh births, only 38 women die, whereas in India, 230 women die, and in Pakistan, 260 women die. So that is the health facilities of these three countries. China and Pakistan have more proportion of urban people than India. In China, due to topographic and climatic conditions, the area suitable for cultivation is relatively small, only about 10% of its total land area. The total cultivable area in China accounts for 40% of the cultivable area in India. The fertility rate is low in China and very high in Pakistan. Pakistan is ahead of India in reducing their proportion of people below the poverty line, and also its performance in education, sanitation, and access to safe drinking water is better than that of India. Urbanization is high in both Pakistan and China. India is in the worst scenario as compared to the other two countries with respect to access to improved sanitation and clean water. China is moving ahead both India and Pakistan in terms of indicators of human development. Now let us retrograde, that is summarize of this chapter. With the unfolding of the globalization process, developing countries are keen to understand the developmental process pursued by their neighbors as they face competition from developed nations as also amongst themselves. India, Pakistan, and China have similar physical endowments but totally different political systems. All the three countries follow the similar planned pattern for development. However, structure established to implement developmental policies are quite different. Till the early 1980s, the developmental indicators of all the three countries, such as growth rates and sectorial contribution towards national income, were similar. Reforms were introduced in 1978 in China, in 1988 in Pakistan, and in 1991 in India. The Pakistan reforms made in 1988, not 1986, it is 1988. China introduced structural reforms on its own initiative, while they were forced upon India and Pakistan by international agencies. The impact of policy measures were different in these countries. For instance, one child norm has arrested the population growth in China, whereas in India and Pakistan, a major change is yet to take place. Even after years of planned development, majority of the workforce in all the three countries depends on agriculture. The dependence is greater in India. Though China has followed the classical development pattern of gradual shift from agriculture to manufacturing and then to services, India and Pakistan's shift has been directly from agriculture to service sector. China's industrial sector has maintained a high growth rate while it is not so in both India and Pakistan. This led to rapid increase of the GDP per capita in China, then in India and Pakistan. China is ahead of India and Pakistan on many human development indicators. However, these improvements were attributed not to reform process but the strategies that China adopted in the pre-reform period. While assessing the developmental indicators, one also has to consider the liberty indicators. What are the liberty indicators? Liberty indicators are those indicators which represent the degree of civil and political freedom to individuals in a country. They are also needed along with indicator of income, health, and education in the Human Development Index. That's all. Thank you.